So hi, I'm Larfa Simayola, the first reporter of Group for Lesson 13, LGBT plus Psychology. So this would be the objectives. First, discuss what is LGBT plus psychology. Second, cite all the various fields engaging LGBT community. Third, understand the psychology of LGBT. So let us first define what is LGBT plus psychology. So LGBT plus psychology is a complex and evolving field exploring the psychological experiences, development, and well-being of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer and other gender, and sexually diverse individuals. It moves beyond simple categorization, acknowledging the intersectionality of identities and the diverse live realities within the LGBTQ plus community. So, it explores a topic like identity development, family relationships, mental health, and the impact of discrimination. So, understanding LGBTQ plus psychology is crucial because it helps us challenge harmful stereotypes, develop effective intervention for mental health issues, and advocate for policy changes that protect the rights and well-being of LGBT people, ultimately creating a more just and inclusive society. So, the history of LGBTQ plus. So, evidence of LGBTQ plus individuals and relationship can be traced back to ancient civilization. Ancient Egypt featured depictions of same-sex relationships, and ancient Greece had a culture of pederasty where older men formed relationships with younger boys. So in ancient Egypt, depiction of same-sex couples appear in tomb painting and other artifacts, suggesting that such relationships were accepted, if not always openly celebrated. So pedestry is commonly known on ancient Greece. So, a relationship between an older man and a young boy was a prominent aspect of Greek society, often portrayed in literature and art. It is important to note that this practice was not considered equivalent to modern homosexuality and was often associated with mentorship and social status. So understanding this historical context help us recognize the fluidity of social norms and the long history of diverse sexual and gender expressions. So it is crucial to avoid imposing modern labels and interpretation in Asian cultures while acknowledging the complexity and richness of human experience through history. So during the Middle Ages and Renaissance, LGBTQ plus individuals faced increasing persecution and societal pressure. So homosexuality was often condemned by religious authorities, and laws were enacted to criminalize same-sex relationships. So the influence of Catholic Church grew during the Middle Ages, and its teaching strongly condemned same-sex relationships. So this religious condemnation laid the groundwork for societal intolerance. So laws were enacted across Europe to criminalize same-sex relationships, often their harsh punishments including imprisonment, torture, and even death. These laws reflected the prevailing religious views and solidified societal prejudice. So this period first LGBTQ plus to secrecy and internalized homophobia. So, in 19th and 20th century, LGBTQ plus individuals continued to face discrimination and violence. So, however, the Stonewall riots in 1969 mark a turning point, sparking the modern LGBTQ plus rights movement. So the modern LGBTQ plus rights movement, sparked by the Stonewall riots, has been a long and arduous journey, marked by both setbacks and victories. Despite the challenges, the movement has made significant progress in achieving greater equality and acceptance for LGBTQ plus individuals. The fight for full equality continues with ongoing efforts to address issues such as discrimination, violence, and lack of representation in all areas of societies. The legacy of Stonewall riots serve as a reminder of the power of collective action and the importance of continuing to fight for a more. So next is the key milestone in LGBTQ plus history. So I will only discuss only 4 milestones. So the first one is the Stonewall riots in 1969. So the Stonewall Inn was a popular gathering place for LGBTQ plus individuals in New York City's Greenwich Village. Homosexuality was still largely criminalized in the United States, and LGBTQ plus individuals face constant harassment and discrimination from law enforcement. So the Stonewall riots galvanized the LGBTQ plus community and sparked a new era of activism and organizing. It marked a turning point in the fight for LGBTQ plus rights, shifting from a focus on discrete activism to a more confrontational and visible movement. So the second milestone was the first Pride Parade in 1970 that were held in New York City, Los Angeles, and Chicago on the first anniversary of the Stonewall riots. So these marches were a direct response to the uprising and a powerful display of LGBTQ plus visibility and pride. The marches evolved into annual event, becoming a global celebration of LGBTQ plus identity and a way to commemorate the Stonewall riots and the ongoing struggle for equality. So the third one is the transgender rights movement. So transgender rights movement has gained increasing visibility and advocacy in recent decades. This is due in part to the work of transgender activists and organizations, as well as increased media attention and public awareness of transgender issues. And the last one is continue to fight for equality. So the LGBTQ plus community continues to face challenges, but progress has been made in areas such as legal recognition, healthcare access, and protections against discrimination. So, the next topic will be discussed of Ms. Syra Suwaso. Thank you.
I am Syra C. Swazo, and I am the second reporter of Group 4, and my topic is all about LGBTQIA+. LGBTQIA+ is an acronym that stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer or questioning, intersex, asexual, and plus. It's an inclusive term used to represent the diverse range of sexual orientations and gender identities that exist beyond heterosexual and cisgender identities. Lesbian, a woman or someone who identifies with being female who is attracted to other women. So for example for this is Sarah, who identifies as a lesbian, is romantically and emotionally attracted to other women. So the second one is gay, typically refers to men who are attracted to other men. So for example for this is John identifies as gay because he is attracted to men. The third one is bisexual. It is a person attracted to more than one gender. This includes attraction to people who identify as male, female, or non-binary. Example, Alex identifies as bisexual because he have a romantic feelings toward both men and women. Another example for this is a girl attracted to men, and she also attracted to women. The fourth one is transgender. It is a person whose gender identity is different from the sex they were assigned at birth. So, example, Maya was assigned male at birth, but she identifies and lives as a woman, so she identifies as transgender. The fifth one is queer or questioning. Queer is a broad term used for people who are not heterosexual or not cisgender. It can also be an identity in itself. So, questioning refers to individuals who are uncertain about or exploring their sexual orientation or gender identity. For example, Jamie identify as queer because they don't feel they fit into the labels of male, female, gay, or straight. The sixth one is intersex. It is a person born with physical sex characteristics such as chromosomes, hormones, or anatomy that do not fit typical definition of male or female. Example, Taylor is intersex, having both male and female biological traits. The seventh one is asexual. It is a person who experiences little or no sexual attraction, although they may still have romantic relationships. Example, Sam identifies as asexual because they do not feel sexual attraction to others, but they still enjoy close romantic bonds. The last one is plast. This includes all other identities not covered by the LGBTQIA acronym, such as pansexual. Pansexual is attracted to all genders. Two-spirit, used by some indigenous cultures to describe gender fluidity. And gender fluid, someone whose gender identity changes. Example for this is Lee identify as gender fluid, sometimes feeling more male, other times more female, and sometimes neither. We will move on to key areas of research and practice about LGBT plus psychology. Current research in LGBT plus psychology explores a wide range of topics including identity development, mental health and well-being, relationships and family, intersectionality, and gender and sexuality. Identity development, understanding the processes by which individuals come to understand and accept their sexual orientation and or gender identity. So this area of research studies how LGBTQIA+ individuals come to understand and accept their sexual orientation or gender identity. So research might explore how a teenager realizes they are transgender and how their self-acceptance evolves over time. The second one is mental health and well-being. Investigating the prevalence and correlates of mental health challenges within the LGBT plus community, as well as the protective factors that promote resilience and well-being. So, the mental health and well-being is focuses on the mental health challenges that LGBTQIA plus people may face due to discrimination, social stigma, or lack of acceptance. It also examines what factors protect and support their well-being. The third one is relationships and family. Examining the dynamics of same-sex relationships, family structures, and parenting within LGBT plus families. So relationships and family, this area looks at the dynamic of LGBTQIA plus relationships and families, including same-sex couples and parenting by LGBTQIA plus individuals. The fourth one is intersectionality, recognizing that LGBT plus identities intersect with other social identities, race, ethnicity, class, disability, or etc., creating unique experiences and challenges. Research in this area highlights the need for culturally sensitive and inclusive approaches to care. So, intersectionality recognizes that people have multiple aspects of identity like race, gender, and sexual orientation, which intersect to create unique experiences. LGBTQIA+, people of color, for example, may face both racism and homophobia. For instance, a black lesbian woman might face different challenges than a white lesbian due to the combination of racism and homophobia in her community. The last one is gender and sexuality. Exploring the complexities of gender identity and expression, sexual orientation, and the diverse ways individuals experience their gender and sexuality. So, gender and sexuality, this research focuses on how people experience and express their gender identity and sexuality, acknowledging that these concepts are fluid and can differ from person to person. This is the last topic of LGBTQ plus psychology. The last topic will be therapeutic approaches and interventions. Effective therapeutic approaches for LGBT plus individuals require cultural competence, sensitivity, and an understanding of the unique challenges faced by these populations. Affirmative therapy is a key approach focusing on validating clients' identities and experiences, promoting self-acceptance, and addressing the impact of stigma and discrimination. This often involves working collaboratively with clients to develop coping strategies and build resilience. So, cultural competence and sensitivity. Therapists need to be knowledgeable about the unique experiences of LGBTQIA+ individuals. They must create a non-judgmental, inclusive environment where clients feel comfortable discussing their identity. For example, a therapist who is culturally competent might be familiar with issues like coming out, and they will not assume everyone is straight or cisgender. They will use the client's preferred pronouns and make them feel accepted. Affirmative therapy. This approach actively supports LGBTQIA+ clients in accepting their identity. It encourages self-acceptance and helps clients deal with the effects of discrimination and stigma. Example, if a transgender person feels ashamed due to negative comments about their identity, an affirmative therapist would help them explore why their identity is valid and give them tools to cope with that external negativity. Collaborative coping strategies. Therapists work with the client to develop skills and strategies to handle challenges like discrimination or rejection and to build resilience. So, for example, a therapist may help a young gay person developing coping mechanism to handle bullying at school, such as finding supportive friends or practicing assertiveness in response to homophobic remarks. So, in sum, effective therapy for LGBTQIA+ individuals focuses on understanding their unique challenges, validating their experiences, and building a supportive environment to foster their mental and emotional well-being. That's all.
Good morning, everyone. We are the next reporters of Group 6. Our topic is all about men and masculinities. So here's our lesson objectives. We have masculinities. It is a social, cultural, and historical construction of men dependent on and related to other factors such as class, ethnicity, sexuality, age, and disability. So, essentially, masculinities means that being a man isn't just biological. It's also about what society, culture, and history say a man should be. It's not one size fits all. how someone expresses their manliness is influenced by things like, for example, class, such as being poor or rich. We also have ethnicity, their cultural background, sexuality, or who they are attracted to. We also have age, and also last, whether they have a disability. It's a social contract also. This means that the ideas around what being a man is created by society and can change over time. So instead of one fixed idea of masculinity, there are many masculinities, which are different ways of being a man. Next, we have hegemonic masculinity, a form of masculinity which is culturally dominant in a given setting. Imagine a classroom where the coolest kids are the ones who are good at sports, don't show their feelings, and are a bit tough. That's kind of what hegemonic masculinity is. Next, we have protest masculinity. It is a form of masculinity which is culturally dominant in marginalized setting. So think of a protest masculinity as a way of being a man that rises in places where men feel pushed to the side or disrespected by the wider society. It's like saying that you don't think I'm a real man, I'll show you. So protest masculinity is a way for men in marginalized settings to try and assert their manhood and reclaim a sense of power, often by emphasizing traditional masculine traits. Caring masculinity proposes that men are able to adopt what is viewed as traditionally feminine characteristic. So caring masculinity is about breaking down the old idea that men have to be tough and emotionless. It says men can be caring too. It's okay for men to show emotions like empathy, tenderness, and nurturing. It challenges traditional roles. It says that men don't have to stick to only masculine traits. They also embrace qualities that have traditionally been seen as feminine. It's about being a well-rounded person. It encourages men to be both strong and sensitive and to care for others. Essentially, caring masculinity means a man can be strong and supportive, tough and gentle. All at the same time, it's about being a good person, not just a tough guy. So we also have here men's rights lobby. One of the main founding texts of this lobby is by Warren Farrell in his work, The Myth of Male Power. Why Are Men the Disposable Sex? 1994. According to him, men are now the gender victims as a result of feminism having gone too far, with men having increased responsibilities but few rights around issues of marriage, divorce, child custody, and access to children. Modern legislation is seen to be overprotective of women's interests, resulting in discrimination against men at a time when they are under increasing threat within a rapidly changing society. Still, some researchers argue that these pro-male movements were only a reaction to feminism, an attempt to accuse women and feminists for creating problems that men encounter in society. So the men rights lobby is basically a group of people who believe that men are being discriminated against in modern society. So they argue that feminism has gone too far and now men are the ones facing unfair treatment. They also point to issues like divorce, child custody, and legal protections, claiming that laws and social attitudes favor women over men. So they say men have increased responsibilities but fewer rights and that they are under increasing pressure in a changing world. They can feel that laws are favoring women and discriminating against men. And also, some see this movement as a reaction to the feminist movement. They believe that men's rights activists are blaming women for the problem men face. It's a group saying we think men are getting the short end of the stick now, and they're pushing for changes to address what they see as unfairness. Essentially, it's a movement that focuses on what they perceive as disadvantages and discrimination faced by men in a contemporary society. We also have here multiple masculinity. Different cultures and different periods of history construct masculinity differently. Some cultures make heroes of soldiers and regard violence as the ultimate test of masculinity. Other cultures look at soldiering with disdain and regard violence as contemptible. Some countries regard homosexual sex as incompatible with true masculinity. Other countries think that no person can be a real man without having a homosexual relationship. Essentially, the idea of multiple masculinities just means that there's no way to be a man. What it means to be a man changes depending on where you are and when you are. Cultural shapes masculinity. Different societies have different ideas about what makes a man a man. For example, some cultures praise soldiers and value toughness. Others might look down on violence and value other traits. Some cultures see homosexuality as unmanly. Other cultures have seen it as a part of being man. It's not fixed. These ideas about masculinity aren't set in stone. They change over time and from place to place. So instead of one universal masculinity, there are many different versions, all shaped by culture and history. So we have here hierarchy and hegemony. Hegemonic masculinity refers to the dominant form of masculinity that is privileged and upheld by society. It is characterized by characteristics such as strength, courage, aggression, and the ability to provide and protect. Hegemonic signifies a position of cultural authority and leadership, but not total dominance as other forms of masculinity. Hegemonic masculinity was understood as a pattern of practice that allowed men's dominance over women to continue. So imagine a top tier of manhood that society puts on pedestal. That's hegemonic masculinity. It's like the ideal man that everyone looks up to even they don't perfectly fit the mold. So here's a breakdown. The ideal man is a version of masculinity that's seen as the most powerful, respected. It usually involves traits like being strong, brave, aggressive, and a good provider. Hegemonic means it's in charge. It holds a position of authority and influence in society. So basically, hegemonic masculinity is a gold standard of manhood in society. Even if many men don't fully embody it, it is the most valued way to be a man and has historically helped men maintain power over women. Next, complicit masculinity. These are men who receive the benefits of patriarchy without enacting a strong version of masculine dominance. Think of complicit masculinity as the guys who benefit from the system without being the ones running it. Here is the example. These are men who enjoy the advantages that come with being male in a patriarchal society, a society where men holds most of the power. In short, it's about men who enjoy the benefits of male privilege without having to be the ones actively enforcing it. They benefit from the system even if they aren't the ones at the top. Lastly, we have collective masculinities. This refers to the behavior of individuals within an institution like schools, colleges, or workplace. In day-to-day life, there are many examples of collective masculinity that impact other individuals, especially in the workplace. Some men form a group of harassing the female workers and that they think proves their masculinity. In this way, they turn the sometimes playful flirtations into sexual harassment and make it difficult for the females to work. So collective masculinities is basically how groups of men act together in places like school or workplaces and how those actions affect everyone around them. So it's about how groups of men behave as a unit, not just as individuals. This is usually happens in places like schools, colleges, especially workplaces. This turns harmless flirting into harmful sexual harassment. It creates a hostile environment. These actions can create a difficult and uncomfortable environment for women. In short, collective masculinities is when groups of men act together in ways that reinforce traditional ideas of masculinity and often negatively affect those around them, especially women. So that was the end of my discussion. So after my report, we also have another reporter, which is Miss Emeline Sumili.
Good day everyone, I am Emmeline Ilsumili and this is the continuation on lesson 14 about men and masculinities. Masculinities and well-being. Research confirms a strong association between rigid norms about what it means to be a man and men's negative health practices and abilities. So first is the substance abuse. Men are more likely to drink excessively or use drugs when stressed due to societal limited coping skills and cultural norms. Traditional gender rules often discourage men from expressing emotions, leading them to use substances as a way to cope with stress. Physical factors and a tendency for risk-taking behaviors also contribute to this pattern. Second one is mental health issues. So men are less likely to seek help for depression or suicidal thoughts due to societal that encourage them to appear strong and self-reliant. So this can lead to feelings of shame or weakness if they ask for help, causing them to internalize their struggles instead of reaching out for support. So as a result, men may suffer in silence, which increases the risk of severe mental health issues, including suicide. The third one is physical health problems. Men are more likely to die from alcohol and substance abuse related illnesses due to the higher rate of risking drinking and drug use. Social factors such as peer pressure and cultural norms often encourage men to engage in this behavior. Additionally, men may be less likely to seek help for addiction, leading to long-term health issues and an increased risk of outcomes. Next one is the family formation, fathering, caregiving, and domestic roles. Historically, men were primarily seen as breadwinners with their main role in the families focused on providing financial stability. Kay lagi diba ang ilang giingon nga ang ama ay ang haligi ng tahanan. Then this created a division of labor where women were expected to be the primary caregivers and emotional nurturers while men on the role of providers and protectors. As a result, men's emotional engagement and active participation in parenting were often undervalued. According to Destra and Kaiser 2009, men out on important psychological and health benefits when they aren't more involved in domestic and family roles. Research shows that active participation in parenting and spending quality time with children can improve men's mental well-being, reduce stress, and even lead their physical health. Engaging in a family life strengthens emotional connection and creates a more balanced and fulfilling life for men. Next is Men contribute to domestic life not only by providing financial support, but also by actively participating in their children's activities outside of schools or homes such as sports or this action naka-help siya to strengthen the family bonding and also support sa ilang mga children's development na gonna show that their rules goes beyond just financial contribution, di ba? Um, dili lang sila provider but also a supporter to their family. Masculinities and alcohol and drug use. So according to Welzak et al. 2000s, study shows that men tend to drink more alcohol than women, both in larger amount and more often. Diba ang mga, like fathering, more likely nagainom kina sila. Like, labi na ka ng ting sweldo, sus. Tapok giinom din ng mga father diha ay. As a result, they are also more likely to experience health and social problems related to alcohol. So, kana, tira kuha ang mga sakit sa sigig tagay ay. Additionally, men may be less likely to seek help for mental health issues, turning to alcohol as a coping mechanism for stress. Kinahimo na nila ang alcohol og coping mechanism nila, awa pagkasubraan og inom, nanggawa sa ilang mga hinanakit ay sulti tanan with hilak-hilak effect. Eme. The next one is the protest masculinity. Protest masculinity is a type of masculinity that rejects traditional ideas of what it means to be a man, especially in terms of power and societal expectations. It often appears rebellious, destructive, and disconnected as it challenges the dominant norms of masculinity. This form of masculinity can sometimes lead to negative behaviors and feelings of isolation. One example of protest masculinity is the expression of violence. Men who adopt this form of masculinity may use aggression or violent behavior as a way to challenge societal expectation or express frustration with traditional gender roles, often resulting in harmful outcomes. Protest masculinity arises by behavior like aggressions, violence, impatience, heavy drinking, and involvement in crime. Additional masculine norms and it's associated with the lack of emotional control, difficulty managing frustrations, leading to destructive and disruptive actions. So the last discussion is about carrying masculinity. According to Eliot 2016, carrying masculinity refers to a form of masculinity where men reject dominant masculine traits like aggression and power and instead embrace qualities such as empathy, emotional openness, and care. This approach challenges conventional gender roles and promotes gender equality by encouraging men to engage in care, work, and prioritize relationship and enter independence. It opposes hegemonic masculinity, which typically values dominance and emotional restraint by fostering an approach to the masculinity that is nurturing and supportive. Rejecting dominance means opposing system of control, power imbalances, or oppression and instead promoting equality and respect for everyone. Gina-embrace nila ang values of care focuses on nurturing well-being both individual, which is personal care, and within communities, which is the collective care. It emphasizes cooperation, empathy, and mutual supports rather than competition or harm. So next is men who approximate This form of masculinity are viewed as a form of new man. So the new man embraces a modern view of masculinity that rejects traditional sturdiness and emotional toughness. Instead, he values emotional openness, quality, and nurturing care, both for himself and his community. This approach promotes respect, empathy, and cooperation over power and control. So, the overall summary: masculinity and men's studies have been continuously developing inception and up to present. These studies covered common themes of masculinities, different kind of masculinities such as hegemonic, status, and caring masculinities, and the relationship of these masculinities to various aspects of the environment.
Good evening, everyone. I am Luella L. Australia together with Ella Marie Bigluma, and our topic is about gender based violence, survivor, victim, perpetrator, and human rights. Here's our lesson objectives. First, understand the definition of gender based violence, other related terms, and its forms and consequences. Second, understand gender based violence as a human rights issue. Third, determine the relationship between human rights and gender based violence, and differentiate perpetrators, survivors, and victims in gender based violence. Gender based violence refers to any harm perpetrated against a person's will on the basis of gender. This socially ascribed differences between males and females. GBV or gender based violence means any harmful act done to someone just because of their gender. It includes physical, emotional, or sexual harm, and it happens because of unfair beliefs about how men and women should behave. GBV is one of the most widespread and human rights abuses, but least recognized in the world. Results in physical harm, includes hitting, beating, or any form of violence that injures a person. Sexual harm includes rape, harassment, and any unwanted sexual actions. And psychological harm includes threats, insults, controlling behavior, or making someone feel worthless. Gender based violence experienced by women and girls includes any harmful action that causes physical, sexual, or emotional suffering. It can happen anywhere at home, in public places, or even online. Even the threat of violence, forcing someone to do something against their will, or what we call coercion, or taking away their freedom or the deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or private life, is also considered as GBV. Gender based violence experienced by men and boys is a serious but often overlooked issue. It includes sexual violence such as anal and oral rape, genital torture, castration, gang rape, and sexual slavery. Although men and boys are often seen as the perpetrators of violence, they can also be victims. Many cases go unreported due to fear or cultural beliefs that men should always be strong. Globally, men are more likely to be involved in violent situations and to die from homicide or suicide due to social pressure that discourages them from expressing emotions or seeking help. Gender based violence experienced by the LGBTQIA plus community happens because they do not always fit into traditional gender roles. This makes them more vulnerable to harassment, discrimination, and violence. Some attacks, such as sexual assault or hate crimes, happen specifically because of their gender identity or sexual orientation. In some cases, abusers use a person's identity to threaten or control them. For example, someone who is not publicly out may be blackmailed or forced to stay silent about abuse. LGBTQIA+ individuals may also face verbal abuse, physical attacks, and exclusion from jobs or healthcare simply because of who they are. So now let's proceed to the consequences of gender-based violence, include serious, immediate, and long-term impacts on the sexual, physical, and psychological health of survivors. So, gender based violence has serious health consequences that affect both survivors and their families. Victims of sexual violence may face unwanted pregnancies, complications from unsafe abortions, and sexually transmitted infections, or STIs, including HIV. Physical attacks can cause serious injuries that may lead to long term health problems. The mental health effects of GBV include depression, anxiety, post traumatic stress disorder or PTSD, and suicidal thoughts. GBV also affects children, as those who witness or experience violence may suffer from poor health, difficulty in school, and emotional distress. Social consequences. Gender based violence affects not just the victim but also their family and community. Survivors may face judgment, discrimination, or isolation, making it hard for them to heal. For example, a child born from rape may be rejected, and families who support victims might be avoided by others. This can lead to loneliness, stress, and lack of community support. Economic consequences. GBV has serious economic effects. It increases costs for healthcare, social services, and law enforcement, putting pressure on public resources. Survivors may struggle to work or continue their education due to physical and emotional trauma, reducing their ability to earn a living. This can lead to financial dependence, poverty, and lost productivity, affecting families and the economy. Now let's proceed to survivor, victim, and perpetrator. Survivor is the preferred term, not a victim, of person who has lived through an incident of gender-based violence. A survivor is someone who has experienced gender-based violence but continues to live and move forward. This term is preferred over victim because it emphasizes strength, resilience, and recovery rather than helplessness. Victim is referred to someone who has recently been affected by sexual violence when discussing a particular crime or when referring to aspects of the criminal justice system. The term victim is commonly used in legal contexts to describe someone who has recently experienced sexual violence. It denotes a person harmed by a criminal act, granting them certain rights within the justice system. However, some feel that victim implies positivity or weakness, while survivor emphasizes resilience and recovery. So the next reporter will be discussed about perpetrator and human rights.
Hello everyone, I'm Ella Marie Cloma and this is the continuation of Miss Australia's topic. A perpetrator is someone who has committed a crime or at least done something pretty bad. The word perpetrator is often associated with crime that police officer and other criminal justice types sometimes abbreviate it a perp. A perpetrator is often suspect until it has been proven that he or she carried out the offenses. So this is the characteristic of perpetrators. Person with real or perceived power, person in decision-making positions, and person in authority. So, ang person with real or perceived power, this encompasses individuals who have actually influence or who are seen as having the ability to control or influence others, regardless of whether the influence is legitimate or not. Next is person in decision-making position. This refers to individuals who are formally or informally involved in making choices or decisions that impact others or the organization they belong to. And next is person in authority. This also refers to individuals who have a formally or recognized right to give orders, make decisions, or enforce rules, often within a hierarchical organization structure. So my next topic is human rights. So what is human rights? Human rights are universal, ineligible, indivisible, interconnected, and interdependent. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedom without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political and other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or status. Gender-based violence is a human right concern. So, ang gender-based violence refers to harmful acts directed at an individual based on their gender, often affecting women and marginalized groups the most. It includes physical, sexual, psychological, and economic abuse. So, in human rights, the gender-based violence is also considered a violation of human rights, meaning every person has protections under international and Philippine laws to live free from violence and discriminations. Acts of gender-based violence violate a number of human rights principles ingrained in international human rights instruments and in our Philippine Constitution. These include the following amongst others: the right to life, liberty, and property of person, the right to the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health, the right to freedom from torture or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment, the right to freedom of opinion and expression, to the education. Gender-based violence is not just a personal or family issue. It is a violation of human rights that affect society as a whole. The Philippines Constitution and international laws uphold the right to safety, dignity, and equality for all. However, laws alone are not enough. Stronger implementation, cultural change, and collective action are necessary to end the gender-based violence and create a safer society for everyone. So the next is based on the gender-based violence policy and institutional mapping in 2020. The Philippines has been a state party to the UN Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women since 1981 and the UN Convention of the Rights of Children since 1990. In effect, the Philippines adopt the standard of these two international human rights instruments as part of the national laws. The Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women is an international human rights treaty adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on December 18, 1979 and came into force on September 3, 1981. It is often called the International Bill of Rights for Women because it defines discrimination against women and set up an agenda for national action to end such discrimination. Because women must have equal rights and opportunity in all aspects of life, including education, employment, and political participation. Government also must take action to eliminate discrimination based on sex or gender in laws, policies, and practices. The Convention on the Rights of the Child is an international treaty adopted by United Nations General Assembly on the November 20, 1989 and came into force on September 2, 1990. It is the most widely ratified human rights treaty in history, with nearly every country in the world, including the Philippines, as signatory. Every child has the right to be treated equally regardless of race, gender, religion, or social-economic background. All actions and decisions concerning children should prioritize their well-being. Every child has the right to life and develop physically, mentally, and emotionally. The next is 1987 Philippine Constitution. In Section 14, Article 2 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution state, the state recognizes the role of women in nation building and shall ensure the fundamental equality before the law of women and men. The Constitution acknowledges that women play a vital role in the country's development. It promotes women participation in various sectors including politics, education, economy, and governance. Next is the Magna Carta of Women. Republic Act Number 9710, Magna Carta of Women. The Magna Carta of Women is a comprehensive women's rights law in the Philippines that promotes gender equality and protects women from discrimination. It is signed into a law on August 14, 2009 and aligned with the country's commitment to the Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Next is Women and Nation Building Act of 1992 RA 7192. The Women and Development and Nation Building Act was enacted on February 12, 1992 to promote gender equality by giving women equal opportunities in economic, social, and political development. It was the first Philippine law to formally recognize women's critical role in nation building. And lastly, the General Appropriation Act of the Philippines. The General Appropriation Act is the annual national budget law passed by Congress that authorizes government spending for the year. It funds all government programs, projects, and operations, ensuring that public resources are located according to national priorities. And that's the end of my topic. Thank you for listening.